Hey, yo, what's up, guys, man? Yo, KG back again for another episode. Yo, let's start back from where we left off yesterday. Shit. No, no, no. That's, bro, I don't know why this always pops up. Let's go to sound. All right, system. Bro, why is this shit still on the screen? Man, I hate this shit, bro. Hold on, let me fix it real quick, bro. Damn, bro. Like, why does it always pop up? Like, don't make sense. It's always like a technical fucking issue. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to replug. Replug. See, usually I play some music, but it's fucking ads. Bro, why is this shit still on the screen? How we got it? I know, what the fuck? Nah, I don't hear the fucking PS5, bro. What? Okay, it's because we disconnected it. They could have ever gave anyone. Alright, we're back in motion, guys. Alright, guys, man, as you guys know, we started reading from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. We started reading from the Tibetan Book of the Dead yesterday. So now we're gonna keep reading, and we were only at the intro yesterday. We haven't actually started the book, but it talks about basically what it means. Well, whatever. Let's just start it back to
Editions and content of The Great Liberation by Hearing in the Intermediate States. The diverse strands of the lineage stemming from Karma Lingpa and Jayarawa, summarized above, ensured that their legacy would flourish throughout Tibet and in the neighboring sub-Himalayan regions of northern Nepal, Sikkim, and Bhutan. The earliest texts which these spiritual successions imparted through the generations were handwritten manuscripts, including a great many local and anonymous supplements. Yet, as Brian Cuevas has rightly observed, most of the available recensions of Karma Lingpa's peaceful and wrathful deities come to us in the form of xylographic prints and facsimile reproductions from blocks carved only in the last 2 centuries. Unfortunately, the scribal errors that have crept into many of these standard editions subsequently acquired great currency. At present, the most extensive extant version of the peaceful and wrathful deities, Natural Liberation of Enlightened Intention, is not a block print, but the manuscript version from the library of the late Kyabji Dudjom Rinpoche, who in the 1960s had his scribe prepare an elegant 3-volume edition on the basis of the 2 volumes in his possession, which were apparently of Katok provenance. This manuscript contains 64 distinct texts, which are arranged sequentially under the categories of history, empowerment, generation stage, perfection stage, introductions, according to the Great Perfection, path of skillful means, and protector liturgies. Although it is the most extensive version available, this manuscript is by no means exhaustive, for there are other, smaller published compilations, associated with Peliel, Dzogchen and Nido, containing texts that are excluded from the larger anthology. However, in our experience, and on the authority of Gene Smith, who generously made the Dudjom manuscript available on CD-ROM, the Dudjom manuscript is far more accurate than the many Indian and Bhutanese reprints that are more widely available and have provided the source for the recent partial translations of the Great Liberation by Hearing in the Intermediate States. Even the illuminated manuscript on which Kazi Dawa Samdup's 1927 translation is based appears to perpetuate the same inaccuracies. After wrestling with the scribal errors, lacunae and inconsistencies that fill the various Indian reprints of the Great Liberation by Hearing in the Intermediate States. It was with considerable joy and relief that we were finally able to clarify obscure readings and eliminate many cumbersome and unnecessary annotations by basing our translation on the three-volume Dudgeon edition of the Peaceful and Wrathful Deities. Natural Liberation of Enlightened Intention. Seldom have we opted for readings based on the two Indian reprints of the Great Liberation by Hearing in the Intermediate States at our disposal, the Delhi and Varanasi photo offset publications, and when we have done so, we have indicated the reason for our choice in the notes. We have not, however, made reference to the new Amdo edition, compiled by Kenpo Dorje and just published in Hong Kong. Readers wishing to understand the precise relationship between the chapters of the derivative Great Liberation by Hearing in the Intermediate States and the larger cycle of the Peaceful and Wrathful Deities are referred to Appendix 1, where the correspondences are presented. As stated above, this is the first complete English translation of the Great Liberation by Hearing in the Intermediate States, otherwise known to the outside world as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and it is based on a version of the original text which has proven to be far more accurate than those used in previous translations. All the chapters of the anthology standardized by Nyama Drakpa and later published in woodblock form at Dzogchen Monastery are contained in this book. With the exception of Chapter 13, Part 1, which may well derive from the non-extant Lotus Peaceful and Wrathful Deities, and Chapter 13, Part 2, which was composed by Jayarawa Namka Chochi Gyatso, all the other chapters from Nyama Drakpa's compilation appear to have been taken from the original treasure cycle of Karma Lingpa's Peaceful and Wrathful Deities. In presenting our translation, we have sought to order the chapters according to the meaningful sequence of the intermediate states that arise in the course of life and death, and therefore the order of the chapters in this translation differs from the arrangement of Nyama Drakpa. In addition, we have included two further chapters from the Peaceful and Wrathful Deities that are not part of the Great Liberation by Hearing in the intermediate states. Chapter 1, outlining the preliminary practices of meditation, is attributed to Nyinda Choj and Nyinda Azair, while Chapter 10, on consciousness transference, derives from Karma Lingpa's 6 guidebooks of the perfection stage of meditation. The first of these has been included because it provides an essential context to the later chapters, and the instructions on consciousness transference have been included because they are specifically mentioned in Chapter 11, as a necessary practice related to the intermediate state of the time of death. 1. Natural liberation of the nature of mind, the 4-session yoga of the preliminary practice context. In its original In its original Tibetan, this preliminary practice is beautifully written in verse. In the monasteries and lay households of the practitioners of this cycle of teachings, it is usually sung melodically in the early morning, before any other practice or activity is begun. Often the young monks sing the opening verses of this poem as they go about their morning duties. When engaging in a preliminary retreat, it is recommended that this meditation is done every day in 4 sessions, early morning till dawn, after sunrise until just before noon, from afternoon until just before sunset, and from sunset until late evening. The practice essentializes the 4 common or outer preliminaries and the 5 uncommon or inner preliminaries, which are described in the glossary. It is recommended that the inner preliminary practices are repeated 100,000 times as a prerequisite to receiving instruction on the generation stage practices of the vehicle of indestructible reality, Vajrayana. Herein is contained the natural liberation of the nature of mind, the 4-session yoga, which is a spiritual practice of the vehicle of indestructible reality, the way of secret mantras, an extract from the peaceful and wrathful deities, a profound sacred teaching entitled Natural Liberation Through Recognition of Enlightened Intention. 2. It would be excellent if one were to train one's mental continuum according to the following preliminary practices, which are based on the peaceful and wrathful deities, a profound sacred teaching entitled Natural Liberation Through Recognition of Enlightened Intention. Common preliminary practice. Oh, alas! Alas! Fortunate child of Buddha nature, do not be oppressed by the forces of ignorance and delusion, but rise up now with resolve and courage. Entranced by ignorance, from beginningless time until now, you have had more than enough time to sleep. So do not slumber any longer, but strive after virtue with body, speech, and mind. Are you oblivious to the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death? There is no guarantee that you will survive, even past this very day. The time has come for you to develop perseverance in your practice. For, at this singular opportunity, you could attain the everlasting bliss of nirvana. So now is, certainly, not the time to sit idly, but, starting with the reflection on death, you should bring your practice to completion. 3. The moments of our life are not expendable, and the possible circumstances of death are beyond imagination. If you do not achieve an undaunted confident security now, what point is there in your being alive, O living creature? All phenomena are, ultimately, selfless, empty, and free from conceptual elaboration. In their dynamic they resemble an illusion, mirage, dream, or reflected image, a celestial city, an echo, a reflection of the moon in water, a bubble, an optical illusion, or an intangible emanation. You should know that all things of cyclic existence and nirvana accord, in nature, with these 10 similes of illusory phenomena. All phenomena are naturally uncreated. They neither abide nor cease, neither come nor go. They are without objective referent, signless, ineffable, and free from thought. For the time has come for this truth to be realized. Homage to the spiritual teachers. Homage to the meditational deities. Homage to the kins. Oh, alas! Alas! How needing of compassion are those living beings, tortured by their past actions, who are drowning in this deep chasm, the engulfing ocean of their past actions. Such is the nature of fluctuating cyclic existence. Grant your blessing, so that this ocean of sufferings may run dry. How needing of compassion are those who are skillless. 5. Those who are tortured by ignorance and past actions, those who indulge in actions conducive to suffering, even though they desire happiness. Grant your blessing, so that the obscuration of dissonant mental states and past actions may be purified. How needing of compassion are the ignorant and the deluded, bound, in this confining dungeon of egotistical attachment and the subject-object dichotomy, who, like wild game, are trapped in this snare, time after time. Grant your blessing, so that cyclic existence may be stirred to its depths. How needing of compassion are those beings who endlessly revolve, in the cycle of existence, as if, circling, perpetually, on, the rim of a water wheel, in this 6-dimensional city of imprisoning past actions. Grant your blessing, so that the womb entrances to the 6 classes of existence may be barred. We who are fearless and hard-hearted, despite having seen so many sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death, are wasting our human lives, endowed with freedom and opportunity, 6 on the paths of distraction. Grant your blessing, so that we may, continuously, remember impermanence and death. Since we do not recognize that impermanent things are unreliable, still, even now, we remain attached, clinging to this cycle of existence. Wishing for happiness, we pass our human lives in suffering. Grant your blessing, so that attachment to cyclic existence may be reversed. Our impermanent environment will be destroyed by fire and water. 7. The impermanent sentient beings within it will endure the severing of body and mind. The seasons of the year, summer, winter, autumn, and spring, themselves exemplify impermanence. Grant your blessing, so that disillusionment, with conditioned existence, may arise from the depths of our hearts. Last year, this year, the waxing and waning moons, the days, nights, and indivisible time moments are all impermanent. If we reflect carefully, we too are face to face with death. Grant your blessing, so that we may become resolute in our practice. Though this body, endowed with freedom and opportunity, is extremely hard to find, when the Lord of Death Aid approaches in the semblance of disease, how needing of compassion are those who, bereft of the sacred teachings, return empty-handed from this life. Grant your blessing so that a recognition of urgency may grow in our minds. Alas! Alas! O precious jewel, embodiment of compassion! Since you, the conqueror, are endowed with a loving heart, grant your blessing, so that we in the 6 classes of beings may be liberated, right now, from the sufferings of cyclic existence. Uncommon preliminary practice. Refuge. Then, the outer, inner, and secret refuges should be adopted in the following way. Outer refuge. I bow down to and take refuge in the spiritual teachers whose enlightened intention, throughout the past, present, and future, is uninterruptedly directed towards living beings, the infinite sentient beings of the 3 world systems and 6 classes. I bow down to and take refuge in the perfect Buddhas, the transcendent ones gone to bliss of the 10 directions and 4 times, foremost of humankind, adorned by the major and minor marks, whose enlightened activities are inexhaustible, and as vast as space. I bow down to and take refuge in the sacred teachings, including the doctrines of the ultimate truth, quiescent and desireless, the irreversible path 9 of the 3 vehicles, and the transmissions, esoteric instructions, and treatises of the transmitted precepts and treasures. I bow down to and take refuge in the communities of monks and nuns, who abide on the unerring path, forming a field of all supreme merits, tend together with the assembly of sublime ones, set apart from the stains of dissonant mental states, and the supreme upholders of the teaching, bodhisattvas, pious attendants, and hermit Buddhas. Inner refuge. I bow down to and take refuge in the spiritual teachers, embodying the essential nature of the Buddhas of the 3 times, the masters of all the secret and unsurpassed mallas, who guide all living beings with their blessings and compassion. I bow down to and take refuge in the meditational deities, who, even though they remain unmoving as the Buddha body of reality, uncreated and free from the limits of conceptual elaboration, emanate in peaceful and wrathful forms for the sake of living beings, and confer the supreme and common accomplishments. I bow down to and take refuge in the assembly of kins, who, moving with the energy of compassion through the space of reality, grant supreme bliss, as they arise from their pure abodes, and bestow accomplishments upon those who keep their commitments. Secret refuge. From within a state free from grasping and beyond intellect, I take refuge in the nature of the great expanse of sameness and perfection, 11 atemporal emptiness, free from conceptual elaboration, primordially pure in essence, natural expression, and compassionate energy. From within, a state which is non-conceptual, naturally radiant and stark, I take refuge in the primordial embodiment of the 5 Buddha bodies, spontaneously and naturally present, abiding in the mala of the unique, seminal point, which is the union of expanse and awareness, and of radiance and emptiness, the indestructible chain of inner radiance that is intrinsic awareness. Throughout the 3 times, beginningless and endless, I take refuge in the compassionate ones, unimpeded, naturally expressive, and all-pervasive, the unimpededly arising and subsiding rays of light, which emanate through the expressive power of awareness, dispelling, non-conceptually, the darkness in the minds of living beings. The generation of an altruistic intention. Then, the altruistic intention of the greater vehicle should be generated in the following way. Even though all phenomena are empty and selfless, sentient beings fail to realize this. Alas! How needing of compassion are they! So that all those who are the focus of our compassion may attain enlightenment, I must rouse my body, speech, and mind to the practice of virtue. For the benefit of all sentient beings of the 6 class.
I guess I have too much technical issue, man. I ain't gonna stream until I get a new fucking capture card, because this is fucking ass. Don't ever get an Aver Media capture card. It's fucking bullshit. Okay, I'm out. Peace.